I'm Zia Leonard from R2 in France. I'm sorry I forgot my badge in the hotel today. Welcome to the Energy Communities track. We're going all day today, so I hope you had your coffee. The first part is, let's see, oops. The first part is 8 presentations. The first one is Kareem from LocalRES. I'm not going to read all the presentation titles. The next one is Blanco with the Creators Project. FEDECOM, Aurelian will present, and then Magui will present POCITYF, I think. Next, Alfonso will present Masterpiece. Asier will present BECKON. Antonis will present De-Risk. And Francisco will present React. So without further ado, Kareem, please come on up. Do you just press the down?
Good morning all. I have the difficult task to start the session, and I will start the session with energy communities from a regulatory perspective. So I hope I won't lose you after 5 minutes and you will just fall asleep because you had the coffee before. But yes, so today I wanted to present you the regulatory barriers that we have encountered related to the setup and growth of energy communities. So lessons learned from the LocalRES project so far, but also some recommendations that we got from the Bridge Regulatory Working Group, in case some of you are involved in this initiative. Oops. Okay, so that was my presentation. I will start with a brief presentation of the project, and we have a look into the regulatory barriers that we have encountered so far and how we are trying to move forward, recommendations from Bridge, and a few conclusions. All right, so sorry I have the impression of my the layout got a bit altered by the merge into a global presentation, but anyway. So the objective of the project is to support the development of renewable energy communities. These communities are seen as really very important actors to lead the structural change towards the energy transition. We have 2 key results, but I won't go into detail today. Hopefully they will be presented next year, in Sustainable 2024. We first have a planning tool that enables citizens' participation into the creation of the renewable energy community, so it's a kind of co-design process. And then we have a multi-energy virtual power plant approach to optimize the different energy vectors in real time. And this MVP is also used to provide flexibility services to DSOs and DSO spaces. We have 4 demonstration sites that we present, and the project is lasting for 4 years, so we still have 2 years to go, more or less. That's a project consortium, so we are a lot of partners in different, 20 partners exactly, in 8 countries. We have 4 demo sites, one in Pasteur in Spain, one in Barchega in Italy, one in Turkey in Finland, and one in Ollersdorf in Austria. As you can see, it's mostly rural demonstrations in small villages. Just a few more details about those demonstrations. So in Turkey, so it's an archipelago on an island. The population is quite small, as you can read, it's around 200 inhabitants. The objective of this demonstration is to minimize blackouts and to move to 100% renewable production. In Austria, it's a bit larger, it's 1,000 inhabitants. The objective is to move towards a smart municipality, and they had already a good foundation for that. Their strength that they really have a great citizens' engagement, and they are using the roof in the village to install collective PV. In Barchega, that's the largest village in the project. Their objective is to strengthen the local community and also to improve their energy independence. What's important to mention here is that this town is already involved in several EU projects, so they already have good foundations as well to start from. and the local grid is partially owned by the municipality, because they are acting as a local DSO. And finally, is Basque. In the Basque country, their objective was to increase self-sufficiency, but also to have more capacity to be able to increase their population. And the local district heating, if I remember correctly, is managed by a cooperative. So now let's start with the exciting part, the regulatory barriers that we encountered. So we started the project with a regulatory analysis related to energy communities. So we reviewed the EU directive and regulations. So not we I won't go into these directives today. I guess most of you know them well already. So on one side, the renewable energy directive, on the other side, the electricity market directive, but also other relevant texts. And then we had to look into how they were transposed into the relevant member states, so that we have legislation. We also looked into other relevant national laws, like laws for EV charging, for collective self-consumption, peer-to-peer trading, and so on. We also look into the network codes, because I mentioned before, our MEVPP tool is supposed to provide flexibility services to the grid. So we look into how these ancillary services are regulated today. So different network codes are relevant. And finally, of course, we had a look at other projects deliverable and also a position paper from relevant associations and so on. So just maybe to finalize on this one, so we did something at the EU scale, but then for the national scale, we really relied on the local teams to look into what was relevant for that demonstration. And I have to mention that everything moved a lot. So we started, it was in 2021, and we had to redo the analysis a lot of time because, of course, the regulation keeps evolving, especially on the topic of energy sharing and the energy community. So our deliverable, I think it was already out of date 2 months after being completed. But well, that's life. So that's how we proceeded. So each demonstration has use cases. We identified the regulatory topics that are relevant for the use cases, and then we checked the regulation that was relevant for that in each country, and we tried to identify where there was no gap identified in the regulation, where the service could not be provided as such, and why because it's complicated for now, and why it cannot be provided at all. When it's written not applicable, it's just because the use case was not envisaging that specific service or specific topic, so we didn't really investigate it. So as you can see, we have a lot of green lights, but some orange as the bottom. This is due to the fact that grid services cannot provided for now by energy communities because of the current market design, that you have to provide a too big volume to be able to trade on the market, but this is being revised now with a new with a reform of the market design, and with also the creation of new network codes on aggregation. I mean, so it's a topic that's really moving a lot these days, so it's hard to stay up to date with everything. And on the peer-to-peer energy trading, this is a bit specific. It's not forbidden by law, but I think it's the way it's done in Austria, is that the DSO calculates itself the sharing coefficient by default. It's not the community itself which calculates the sharing coefficient. So in the end, peer-to-peer trading makes no sense. So just a synthesis. Oh my God, scroll on. Yeah, it was supposed to be red. Anyway.
Sorry.
So barriers, as I mentioned, peer-to-peer trading is pointless in practice for renewable energy community in Austria. Also, the framework for renewable energy communities is not defined yet, or was not defined yet at the time for Spain and Finland. But in Spain, there was an older decree on collective self-consumption, which was actually well defined. In Joker, the issue was that we got an opposition to the project from a local minority, well, completely one guy, which resulted in a legal process in Joker against the project. And also another non-regulatory barrier which was met was increased cost of technologies. But Fortunately, we also have some enablers. First, a strong support from the municipality and the mayors. You could see it's small towns, so there is a lot of support. For the case of Berkita, since the municipality is owning the local grid, it helps because they are the local GSO. Energy prices, high energy prices, and climate awareness are also enablers. And finally, for the specific case of Ollersdorf and Berkita, they had either previously independent projects or local projects that were already developed. So, to overcome the barriers, we had to make some demo adjustments. First, the blockchain peer-to-peer approach, it has to be adapted. We are still discussing that, how we transfer it to another demo or adapt it. And the demo in Choker, probably we have to be pursued outside of the project because now it has been so much delayed that it's being incompatible with our project planning. Main achievements so far, despite all these barriers, there have been an extensive citizen engagement and all demonstration from the start, and the projects were very well received. Future scenarios for decarbonization have been developed as well, and also new business models have been collected. That have been developed, and we have collected data to instantiate the tools that are presented before. So the two key results, the planning tool and the DMEPPP tool, so they have already collected data to make them work. In Ollersdorf, the legal entity for the renewable energy community has been created. They have also installed real-time sensors for flexibility activation and blackout prevention. And in this cluster, the distributing network, which is owned by the local cooperative, has been extended. They have also installed EV charging infrastructure, and they have decided where PV will be installed. So that was in a nutshell the thesis of how you have to take into account the EU and local regulations when you start really developing your demonstration in a project. It's not always something you think about when you write a proposal, but then you completely meet these difficulties. And I wanted to also open a bit my presentation by sharing recommendations from BRIDGE, from the regulatory working group. Just explain quickly what is BRIDGE, in case you're not aware of it. It's a European Commission initiative. The idea is to bring together all projects founded under Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe related to smart grid, energy storage, digitalization, energy communities, of course. And these projects are working together to create a structured view of prospective issues, which are encountered by demonstration projects, and they constitute an statement to innovation. So the idea is really to identify prospective topics and then to have discussions together to identify the barriers and to make recommendations to the European Commission on how to overcome these challenges. So there are 4 working groups in BRIDGE, to which all these projects are invited to contribute. We have data management, business models, consumer and citizen engagement, and finally regulation. And inside regulation, there is this action 2, or there was last year, section 2 on energy communities, which I was chairing. So yeah, just wanted to share the barriers that were identified by the participants to this action. So all projects related to energy communities. So as you can see, a lot of barriers related to regulation, but also to the market, financial and technical barriers, and finally social barriers. We rated, the participants had to rate those barriers, and we identified the top 5 ones. The first one is that processes including technical regulation, enabling framework and so on for energy communities are not fully defined in national regulations yet. So this is as of February this year, so I don't think this has moved a lot since. And when the regulation is defined, I will come back to that later, sorry. But there is a second barrier is actually very similar to the first one, in that the community concept as defined in the 2 EU directive is not fully implemented in the member states. The third and fourth barriers are again very much related to focusing on flexibility markets, but they are not mature enough or highly accessible for energy communities because of minimum size requirements. This bid size change from one country to another, but most of the time is like 1 megawatt. And the participation of aggregators is not yet fully allowed in all EU countries. For instance, in Spain, it's not allowed yet. Technical barriers that was identified that are lack of common interoperability and data management processes and standards, data spaces, platform and interfaces, or data exchange between stakeholders are missing. Those are the recommendations that were coming out of Bridge and which could be of interest for some of the projects. First, you have to raise awareness of national regulators. Projects should be encouraged to really have more discussions with the national regulators from the member states to invite them to their meeting and themselves to participate to regular events organized by the regulator to expose the challenges that they are facing related to regulation. The second point was for the Commission to push member states to properly define national regulations, the legal figure of renewable energy communities and citizens energy communities, but I guess this is also changing with the recast of this new EU directive I mentioned before, which is ongoing. But yeah, still there is this, there are these changes at EU level, but how do we make sure that they are really implemented at member states, and that's a tricky point. Also, beyond the transposition of the directive, it has to be made sure that there is a level playing field for energy communities, that they can also provide services and be a true market player as other previous market participants. And the third recommendation was to launch supporting actions, looking into enabling framework and tools for energy communities, so really to better support energy communities to be creative and to grow, for instance with handbooks, but also services provided to communities for the setup, but also providing, sorry, I have the impression this microphone is changing. But also providing detailed advice to national governments on how they should improve their technical regulations and processes. On grid flexibility services, one of the recommendations made by some projects, and I think this is not being very used so much in the projects, is to set up regulatory sandboxes, which can be complex, but it really depends on the project. In some projects, in some countries, it's easier than others. So if the regulation doesn't allow something yet, you can also request a regulatory sandbox to be able to test it and assess the effectiveness of that action. For instance, in France, you have a framework to do that, to request regulatory sandbox. I think in Spain now it's just started that you can also request regulatory sandboxes. The second point was to design technology-neutral flexibility products and markets. I won't go into details because this one is really specific for flexibility markets, but in brief, energy communities should be able to play a role here as other market participants. And finally, to enable independent aggregators to get into all markets, into all member states, but this again should be enabled by the new network codes on demand response. Regulation will be enabled, and also the recast of market design will also change the current setup. All right, conclusions. I hope you are still with me. So lessons learned on regulatory topics. So EU directives on energy communities have now been transposed in most of the countries, but well, not all of them since. But when they are transposed, it doesn't mean that the public authorities are ready to implement them, because the enabling frameworks are not correctly defined, and also clear support from the DSO is needed, and it's not always the case. In some cases, the transposition is very, very conservative. It's just over energy sharing, for instance. It doesn't go beyond, which hinders the development of communities. Also, national laws and EU directives are still evolving on this topic of energy communities, but also energy sharing and regulations, so it makes it a bit complicated to follow, and for energy communities which are not experts of this, I guess it's more complicated. Even when all the traffic lights are green on the regulatory side, it doesn't prevent you to your project or initiatives to be slowed down by a local position. You cannot really control what people think of your project, and this can also be an issue. Yeah, so in brief, there is still a long way to go to have energy communities as a true market player, able to offer flexibility in other grid services. And yeah, just wanted to share some good practices from the projects on regulation. It's really important to follow closely the evolution of national regulations, frameworks, procedures related to energy services, to the provision of grid services, but also to energy communities as a whole, and also follow what's happening at the EU level. If you can, a distribution system operator should be included in the local consortium, because it really helps with the local development of energy communities. And if really the regulation is not enabling something and you have identified this from the start, you have to think about requesting regulatory sandboxes, but really early on, because this takes time. And it's not always possible. On technical and financial aspects, what we realize in LocalRES is you have to really define clear digitalization requirement for legacy equipment in advance. So you have to know what you will get in your demonstrations, what kind of equipment you have in the houses, what it will require to make them smart and flexible. And you have to make sure that all costs will be covered. And finally, on social acceptance is key to develop a clear engagement strategy from the start, and to really involve people from the start, to emphasize non-financial benefits, and to lead by example and get support from what we call the local heroes. And share social, of course. And that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Are there any questions for Korean? No? Last one?
Sorry. You mentioned that to emphasize the aspect, but we found respondent to the economic aspect that super important, and this is the first rate. Do you say that because you want to highlight those other aspects such as sense of community or environmental consciousness?
Yeah, I think it was all those aspects. Maybe today you can help as well on those. We were not prepared, but then you can help, because Julia was overseeing all the citizens' engagement processes. But yeah, the thing is that from the project, I won't really get any economic benefit to start with. It's more blackout prevention, for instance, more resiliency, energy autonomy, so it's more impact. But also, I guess, very specific to the villages, because since they are, some of them they have a really weak network, they get some blackouts, which are complicated. So it's more, I would say, security and reliability of supply.
Yeah.
Maybe Julia, I don't know. That sounds reasonable.
I have two questions. What is in your opinion, the top regulatory barrier? Like, you have a lot of good information, but if you had to choose one, what would it be? Most important.
Yeah, the thing is that it really depends on one country to another, but the overarching barrier, I guess it was the first one identified by Bridge, that you have this strange animal that has been defined at the EU level, energy communities, and now member states have to transpose it, and they are like, so they control it, but then there is no any big framework backing it up. And so you have this field which is defined in local regulation, that you don't know what to do, how to set it up. So yes, we use this type of enabling framework, which is improving, fortunately, but and that is also sometimes lack of ambition of what they could do, really.
Yeah, the setup difficulty makes sense, but the definition to me is very simple. Co-ownership between citizens and
suppliers.
Yeah, the definition is usually clear in regulation, but then you need also enabling framework to be able to create it. You have to track process with either a DSO or another entity. In Italy, for instance, is another entity taking care of it. In France, it will be the DSO. So you have clear processes that needs to be established.
Sure. And then my other question is, aside from Bridge, because not all projects are invited into Bridge, and then you mentioned guidebooks and things.
Yeah, as for guidebooks, then there will also be Energy Community Repository, which is a service contract that has been set up as a commission. And they will also produce handbooks for communities and support services for their creation.
And anyone is invited to that.
Yeah, I think nowadays in communities rather than projects, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because the question was, how could energy communities influence the regulations?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how could they be heard? You know, how could their case studies be?
So in the Energy Community Repositories, there you have some kind of workshops that are organized with communities to really get feedback from the field, from local actors.
So
and then it's being, I guess, shared with the commission. So they are the owner of this initiative.
Yeah. Okay, good, thank you. Please.
So I joined a little later, but also related to regulation. So you mentioned in your lessons learned that include ESOs in the consortiums or in an early stage of the implementation would be relevant. I do understand that, I mean, they have pretty straightforward grid connection codes, and in smartified grids, they are able to provide it with the main constraints or restrictions on connection points. So can you please go a little bit deeper on what will be the...
I guess again it depends on the country, because in some countries DSOs are not involved in the setup of energy communities, but that is the case, for instance, in Italy. They want to test as a use case peer-to-peer network, and in Italy it has to be allowed by the DSO. So it really helps to have the DSO on board, because that will facilitate the process.
Yeah, the context will be also relevant depending on country to country.
Yeah, I was really surprised. FEDECOM is the project I'm in to create this workshop, and I was very happily surprised to have a DSO in the project because it's rare and very important. So, but it's a good point. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, just one question. We're finishing a project called React, like iPhones, those under performance. And I'm just asking a question with regards to, we have a DSO involved in our Irish cluster. The 3 islands, Santi Etro, Aran Islands, and the other one is Gracios. But we're at a point on the Irish cluster now where we have convinced the island of taking ownership of all of the deployed RES, and they already have an energy community. So I'm just asking you, if you were writing a proposal again, how far up the line in the proposal would you spend engaging with the community first to explain in very clear terms the idea of energy services and grid services to them? So in other words, what I'm interested in is how do we feed back to the European Commission that journey of becoming a participant in an energy community project, becoming an owner of the results of such a project? Because we have a problem now. It's also an opportunity as to how we now help the community take ownership of the energy community that we created on the islands. And we don't seem to have a way that we can see of taking them through another 12 months of ownership, so that they will eventually have somebody on the community capable of managing the actual.
So your issue is with the ownership of the assets?
It's trying to get people from my solar panels, my heat pumps, and my batteries to a community of people who have all of these RES. How do we work together as a community to set up this financially sustainable energy grid, microgrid?
Yeah. Now that's a tricky point, I think, with the business model of energy communities as well. And there are a lot of opportunities, like selling grid services, flexibility services, but in practice it's really complicated to do that. And sometimes you think it will be a source of revenue, but in the end, it's kind of, I don't know, overcomplicating it. So I have not the answer to that, I'm sorry. But this, I guess we will come across that point as well towards the end of the project. We haven't reached that stage yet. But yeah, it will be interesting to discuss more.
Yeah, maybe from a social perspective,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Julia?
Oh, sorry. From a social perspective, I don't know when you started the engagement process because.
Probably about 18 months into the project.
Oh, okay, so it's very important to pick the people up where they are very from the very early stage on. And really try to see where are they, what needs do they have, what constraints do they have, what concerns. And really work with it and really get them engaged and guide them through the more technical parts in a language they can understand and which makes sense to them and really show them what is in for them because otherwise they won't continue. They will listen to you, they will say, okay, I don't care, and go away. So it's a continuous engagement, so you really need to take them through the entire project with you so that they really are involved, engaged, and you have to build trust. It's very important.
That's the work, yeah.
Yeah, so that they really see their benefits and that they see there's something important for them.
It's just we have gotten to that point. But now they need to understand how to train them or show them. Now you have these assets, manage them yourself.
I think actually let's keep this conversation going in the second part, which is about engagement. So thanks, Corinne. Blanca, you're up next. I think unmute.
Do you want to try and change the audio?
Yeah, if you can be quick, yeah. We noticed that this camera is also picking up audio, so if someone coughs or walks out of the room, it's disruptive, so just give us a moment. Should I go out and see if it's better out of the room? Should I go outside? Sometimes
No, the audio is not on the options.
we're okay?
It's not working.
At all?
I mean the microphone.
Just to improve it?
Yeah.
So let's just keep it as it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, please.
Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Blanca Vargas from Monitoring Solution. I'm an energy services and energy communities engineer, and I'm involved in the Creators project. And today my presentation is about Creators Test as a Service. When I say test as a service, does anything come to your mind? Like anything at all?
I'm not allowed to answer, right?
If no one answers, you can answer. Nothing at all? Yes? Anyone make a guess? No? That's actually good because it means that we are building something that at least you guys don't know, which is good. Yeah, you wanna?
But I know.
The honor.
Go ahead, I already know.
Okay, and if I say only TES, TES, the acronym, do you know it? No, right? Yeah, that's because it's not that common. So basically today my presentation is about TES as a service, which is a service we are creating within creators. And when we say TES, we mean community energy systems. That's a different word to say energy communities, but the project creators stands for creating community energy systems.
This word? No.
Okay, so the project creators stands for creating community energy systems, and the objective of the project is to accelerate the integration of community energy systems in Europe. When we say community energy systems, we mean energy community. It just sounded better for the name. And this is a 3-year project. It got standard, so we will be working with it 1 more year. And the consortium, we are like a big group of different construction companies, engineering firms, different local municipalities, research centers, consultancy companies, etc. Okay, I wanted to play a video, but we just saw before starting that it's not working. I believe. So let's keep going. I will present the creators myself. So basically, creators, what we aim with this project is basically to accelerate the creation of energy communities in Europe. To do this, we are going to develop a set of tools and applications to support energy communities. What we want to do basically is to help promoters and help people throughout the whole process and the whole life cycle of an energy community. And for this purpose, it's why we are building these community energy systems as a service. This service for community energy systems. Again, also related to the main benefits of energy communities, we aim at increasing the penetration of renewable energies and to empower consumers and citizens in the energy transition. This service that we are building will be based on a different sets of applications and other services within. Basically, these are our more main 4 pillars, but one of the key outcomes of the Creators Project is the simulation and emulation engine. I think almost everyone is familiar with the term simulation, but I'm pretty sure what that means when they term emulation. Am I right? I think so. So basically, the simulation and emulation engine is a tool that allows to simulate energy communities, but also to emulate them. What do I mean by emulate it? Basically, it allows to create a digital twin of the energy community and feed it with real-time data. Why do we want this? Because then when we jump into the emulation part, the main objective to do that is because we want to see what's going to happen. So imagine that we have an energy community that is already working, it's already producing data, and we want to see if we want to implement something new. For example, we want to add wind energy, but we don't know how it's going to work. So basically, with this emulation engine, we feed the real data of this wind turbine, and we can see how it will affect the energy community. And at the end of the day, this is very useful to make informed decisions. Also, we are creating business models and financial protocols to also help people not only to design but also to implement. And then when the energy community is up and running, we have a management platform that allows to manage and control the energy community. So as you can see, these are different applications and services that we aim to offer for the energy communities. And the way that we are going to offer this is community energy systems as a service. And now we are going to get a bit deeper into what is this as a service approach. Usually this as a service approach is stated as X as a service, which means anything that can be offered in the form of as a service. Nowadays in our life, we are using so many things in the form of as a service: software, mobility, car, computer, entertainment, all those things we're using them in the way of as a service. For example, Netflix, I'm pretty sure that half of this room at least uses Netflix or Spotify. I mean, we are not really buying the product anymore, we are buying the possibility to use them. Again, also, it's more and more common that in the cities we start to see the electric scooters around or the electric vehicles. For example, in Madrid, it's very common this brand that is called City, but I'm pretty sure in different countries we have different brands. And also, for example, in the computer services, we have the Amazon Web Services. Everyone is familiar with Amazon, but I'm not sure if you know that actually the highest market, I mean, how Amazon makes the most money, I mean, their main product is Amazon Web Services, not actually their platform where they sell online things. And also, for example, Uber, that is a mobility app that is present almost everywhere around the world. We do not buy sometimes cars anymore, we just buy the possibility to move with them. So again, this X as a service, this something as a service is more and more common. And then we can see that there are so many things that can be offered as a service, as platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and also business processes as a service. But what's something that can also be used in the form of as a service are energy-related things. For example, energy resources as a service, energy efficiency as a service, energy financing, different things related, energy-related services that can be offered in the way of as a service, and that's where our community energy systems as a service would also fit. So what's our community energy systems as a service approach? So basically, in order to understand the service, it is important that you understand what we want to do with creators. So basically, we want to help the user and the promoter of a project, and we want to guide them throughout the whole life cycle of an energy community project. Energy community projects are complex, and they are definitely not linear. Anyone that hasn't worked in this kind of projects know that they are not linear. But this is the different approach that we found, a different linear approach that we found. That is basically a project. There is a conceptualization stage, where the project is an idea of someone. Then we have the planning, where we are actually really want to make it happen. Then we have the implementation, where everything has already been decided and we are already going to build, going to contract, going to hire. And then finally, when everything is up and running, we are going to states, it can be real-time data because we can install some meters, or it can be historical data. But what we want to do is to balance scenarios and make choices basically, and give the person that is making the decisions different scenarios and allow them to make informed decisions. Once they have decided what do they want to build, they would move in towards implementation. As for implementation, as I said, this is a software-based service, meaning that it's not creators who will pay basically for these assets. It's not the core business to actually install the assets, but we are not just the software part. So in implementation, how we think from creators we can support is in all the funding and contracting. Different protocols for the energy community on financial scheme, where do they get funding, what things do they need to take into consideration for this part. And the result of this study is basically a report that they can use, like an investment report, that it would be useful for them if later they want to either go to a sustainable bank or go somewhere to get actually the amount for the energy community. And lastly, when everything is already deployed and the community is ready to run, we have to make sure that we can manage the community properly, because at the end, within the energy community, there is a lot of flows of energy from one side to the other side. There are flows of money. In the future, we aim to do a peer-to-peer trading, although, as it was mentioned in the previous presentation, it's not still a reality. But we need to manage the community. So that's why we have this management platform. And the result is that the result of the model is that the user can see, can access all the real data of the energy community, understand how it works, maybe do some predictions on bills, on consumption, on demand, on production, different things. So basically, this is what I wanted to present today. This is our community energy system as a service. I hope it was clear. We still have 1 more year in the project. We still need to validate, to develop this more. But I felt it was something interesting to share. Then because now next time if someone asks what is best as a service, at least we know. Thank you very much.
I have one question. Who is the target customer?
We are thinking, the target customer would be this person, this promoter of the energy community, basically. Who is the promoter of the energy community? It can be, for example, someone in the government that actually wants to push an energy community in a local area. It can be an industrial partner. But we feel sometimes that this business, this test as a service, we are actually thinking about it as something that will be offered B2B, business to business. Which means that maybe from creators we can offer this to whom? For example, to a construction company. That construction company can use our skills to do all the design, all the testing, and on top of that, they can offer their services. In their construction company, maybe they are into energy-related services and they want to pay, and their core business to actually install. So maybe they can go to the final client with a higher business value, business proposition.
Okay, thanks, please.
Yeah. Alfonso from University of Murcia. You've been talking about simulators and emulators. Can you develop a bit more on that? Which kind of simulators are you going to use?
Do you mean like a specific?
What are you going to simulate?
What do I mean by this?
What are you going to simulate?
Basically, I have to say that I'm not the expert. We have someone actually at the end of the room. But basically, what they do is that they simulate the behavior of the energy community itself. For example, the generation, the production, how are they going, how, for example, the loads.
The people as well?
Yeah, maybe different people with different consumption curves.
Okay.
We are supposed to get the either historical data or if we can real-time data, and then actually to see how the system works, how the production matches the
So are you
consumption.
planning some sort of black box modeling from the data, or you've got physical models, or What's the plan?
I'm not familiar with the term platforms.
Okay.
Really, I'm not really the person.
Okay,
I mean,
okay. We'll check.
we'll check, otherwise you can contact me and I can direct you.
Okay.
Actually, the person that maybe can explain this better is somewhere in the conference.
Okay.
I will ask him to talk to you if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
Well, my question is the following. Do you have any, are there enough common things between the particular use cases that we may encounter in energy communities who have a single service managing the whole spectrum of what we may encounter in the field? Because we have very different legal conditions, for example, per country, technical conditions, size, and so on. So how do you manage this heterogeneity in a single platform?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. And that's why we were thinking that it should be, instead of a business to consumer, a business to business approach. But for example, if the person that is going to hire this service to offer to the final clients is a client, for example, in Spain, and it's, for example, my company, I am familiar with the regulation in Spain. The company, the platform where it does, for example, in the first stages, it does a design. Design, I think, can be the same, and it should be this third company in between that can actually adjust it, or it can be told the different configuration. Of course, that's something very difficult, but it should somehow be adjusted or customized a bit depending on the country. And that information, that exchange of information, that's why we were thinking that maybe there should be a person or a company in between that will actually know that market, that country, what things work, and can actually tell what they want or actually modify a bit.
In the previous presentation, it was said that it's really important to have a DSO on board. Did you have a DSO on board?
So far, no.
And any like living labs or template or the communities you tested it on?
Yeah, actually, we have different pilot projects. Actually, in creators, we have 20 pilot projects, which is a lot. Of course, each project is at a different stage of development. So, but we have what we call the tier 1 and the 4 main pilot projects of creators. It's where we are going to test it more. Actually, I said no, but this, I think we are talking about more this management and control platform. For example, this is a Belgian company that has a platform. And I know that in Belgium they are testing this platform with their DSO. So, but that's not something that we are doing exactly within creators, but they are doing it outside creators. However, the things, I know Belgium is a little bit more advanced, and there are some things that are allowed that, for example, are not allowed in Spain. So what we are trying to test here is, and in the service we are trying to say, is this service really fit a project? Like, can it be useful? We decided to make it modular because maybe a project, community just want the design, or maybe just want support in the financial, or maybe just want as the community ready and then they want a management platform. But definitely, each project is totally different, each country is totally different, and that's why we are still working on it.
Okay.
Maybe that's a very short question. What is the software or the software license for your platform?
What is the license?
What is the software license? I mean, is that an open source license or is that who has the ownership of the platform?
It's a company called Obi. There's someone at the back there, I don't think.
Who's actually speaking next?
Yeah, and actually, Stefan did a presentation in the open, so if you are more interested in knowing very deep details of the platform, I think it's very easy to talk to them. Or maybe, can you remind your name? Aurelian, maybe you can actually approach him. Right in the back. I think he would be able to tell you more details because I'm from R1. So I'm not.
Real quick.
Yeah, real quick, sir. Following on this modularity that you spoke about your platform, I also think that was probably developed as a more generic or agnostic platform, but then we do have this problem of adding different contexts. So will you say that it's too heavy, then the final stage of tailoring the platform to a particular deployment site? In terms of business, I mean.
We have to decide. So far, we have conceptualized the idea, and during our last year of the project, we want with our projects that we have to actually go through the process and actually help to validate our design. But we know, and we have already seen that each project is so different that we cannot find a single solution that fits all, and then we cannot really modify the platform or every single time to fit every project. So we will need to identify what things we can do as a regular base, and then what things should be done aside for each specific project.
Thanks, Maka. All right, Aurelian. The next two presentations, I'm just trying to speed it along so we have time for the roundtable. Next two presentations are about specific renewables. So Aurelian will talk about smart EV charging, and then Maggie will talk about DIPD. And then after the coffee break, we'll have 4 more presentations before the roundtable.
Thank you.
So we advance, yeah.
Okay. Okay, hello, so my name is Aurélien. I'm working for Audi in Belgium. And we are partners in the project FEDECOM. Kind of the agenda of today is I'm going to present at a high level what the FEDECOM is, what the challenges are, why we're doing it. So FEDECOM is Federated Energy Communities, so it's a community on top of a community. The idea, of course, is to augment renewables production and augment the flexibility so that we actually use those renewables. Then we have 3 pilot sites within FEDECOM, so I'll go over those. And a e-mobility example, so this is one interesting example of a pilot site that we have in Belgium, but in the Netherlands, so we can go over this one as well. So the Federated Energy Community Project, what is it? So we have different energy communities that are already existing or not, and the idea is that sometimes even in those energy communities we have a lot of energy production, and this energy production, if you don't use it inside the energy community, it needs to go to the grid, and so we cannot really be sure that it's going to be used efficiently. And so the idea is to have a platform that will allow the exchange of energy packets in between different energy communities. And we want to add a layer on top of this, we want to add a layer of security. Security and validation of this is an energy packet that has been produced by a renewable source. And for this, there is a very important topic, is we're going to use blockchain and see if it's really efficient to have this information stored onto the blockchain. So there is a blockchain that exists that is kind of specialized for the energy sector. Those blockchains are validated. It's not a decentralized blockchain system like in the BECKON or Ethereum. But it's a kind of blockchain that is validated by certain partners that are TSOs, that are DSOs, that are energy suppliers. You maybe heard of it. It's Energy Web Foundation. So we want to see if adding this layer of security is interesting. And so on top of this blockchain, what we're going to have is we're going to check if we are able to augment the stability of the grid. So we have the frequency stabilization. We also have energy, the market coupling. So we're going to look at the day-ahead market to see at what time it's interesting to use flexibility, and also balance prices. That is something that we can take with us. So, of course, we have energy storage. That means flexibility. When do we store it? Where do we store it? That allows us to tackle this big problem of consuming electricity when it's produced. And of course, everything is produced at the same time and not necessarily want to consume it. And then we do have, like in the other presentation, we have a DSO that is in FEDECOM. I'll talk about him afterwards in Switzerland. So yeah, it's a big picture. We have lots of things to do. We are at the 9th month of the project, 4-year project. So we're at the beginning. So yes, as I said, communities will consume and exchange the surplus. It will be augmenting the intra-community and the inter-community exchanges of energy packets. Of course, as we want market stability, the grid stability, sorry, we want to keep the frequency stable. We will have a more predictive control in order to anticipate when there will be production, when there will be, and when we will have to engage the consumption. This, of course, will be a cloud-based platform, highly technological, and of course, cost optimization. That's okay. The idea, well, this is kind of a summary of what I just said. So, very important. We already have some communities that are working, that are exchanging packets, and so it's on top of it. We want more renewable production, hydro, wind, solar, locally consumed. Of course, is priority. Then exchanges, and then different sharing of this energy. So bottom line, we want to have less inverters that are going out because there is too much production at a certain time. We want to have more renewables in the energy mix. We want to be able to provide electricity at time where there is less production, like batteries, for instance. So that will mean energy savings, reduction in greenhouse gases, and of course, reduction in the final bill of the consumer. So we have 3 pilot sites in Spain. We have various sites. We have sites in Bilbao, Barcelona, and down is Puerto Llano. So there, those pilot sites are kind of focused more on hydrogen production. You'll see that there are big electrolyzers, but also communities. Then we have a pilot site in Switzerland where they have various communities, more residential and building, so less industrial. And then we have in Belgium and the Netherlands, we have some communities that are going to exchange in between themselves, and more focus on e-mobility. So V1G, V2Gs are there at all. So in Bilbao, as you see, we do have still some gas boilers, but yeah, we want to focus on the heat pumps. We want to have thermal storage. So this community is going to be. Then we have the community of residential 590 dwellings, where we will have 100 in FEDECOM. So there are some H2 production. We have 64 kilowatts hydrogen, and then we have also biomass. So there is an energy mix over there. The plant of Puerto Llano, where we have photovoltaic production. Then the 2 big electrolyzers that will produce H2 that will be stored in order to produce fertilizers, green fertilizers. But then we will also have in Barcelona a hydrogen plant where this hydrogen will be used in order to produce buses. So those are the main focuses for Spain pilot projects. Then in Switzerland, so we have 3 residential communities that are under the same DSO, AEM over there. So we have them with us and working with us on this. So there's the detail of what they have installed today. Not going to go over each one, it's going to be catalogous. So yeah, if you're interested, you can go and see the presentation. And then in the Belgium and the Netherlands, we have also 2 residential sites. So in the Netherlands, typically what happens is when they build a district, they build all kind of the same houses, or houses that are for families or houses that are more for couples. And so they directly think about this sustainable energy production and consumption. So they do already have like this plus leven POCITYF energy concept that they have implemented there in Voorhout. But interesting, we will have to install V2G chargers, and that's something that is interesting because V2Gs you can use the energy that are stored into the cars, but the cars will also be able to give back this energy when you really need it. We will see a small case afterwards. We have Basics HQ, so Basics is a construction company. So they are also building residential, so they're very interested in this topic as well. And then we have Brico sites. So Brico is a DIY store chain that are specialized in different warehouses around the country. So they have a lot of production and not necessarily a lot of consumption locally. So instead of letting that flow to the grids, they want to exchange it with, well, it can be employees, it can be family houses in a community. So we have Endro over there, that is an energy broker and a real system operator that is managing this. So e-mobility, V2Gs, but not only, we also have V1Gs. So we want to focus on using the renewable energy to store them into the mobility. We want to be able to retrieve this power when it's needed. So V2Gs, that means that the car can unload the battery when the grid needs it, but then you don't want that the car is empty when you need it. So there is some kind of an optimization to be done there. We want to shift the recharge of the car batteries. So yeah, during the production times, we'll see this as well. That's more for V1Gs. Because today, what's the problem? Well, we arrive typically at 7:30 APOC, and we plug our car into the charge pole. But what happens at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock? We're in full peak of consumption. So we have this car that is, I don't know, for the best case, maybe 3.5 kilowatts, worst case 7 kilowatts or even more. That comes on top of this peak, so it's not good. And that's also a time where there's no sun production, or at least in Belgium, or very little. So that's not efficient. And so V2Gs, as I said. So here is a graph of what I just said. So typically at 8 o'clock, we have all those cars that come and start to plug themselves. So here I looked at the price of electricity. Looking at the price gives a good example of when the energy is consumed. So as Stefan was explaining yesterday, there is kind of a price incentive to help people consume or produce. And so all those cars, they're at the worst time. So the idea is to instead of having the consumption of electricity in the red rectangle, we want to shift it to the blue circle, because typically those cars are there during the whole day, except some exceptions. So we want to use this cheap electricity price, but also this time where the consumption is less and the solar production is more. So we do have some parts where we shift this production, as you saw. So, but why is there still some cars that are plugged at 8 o'clock? Well, of course, there are CEOs in companies. They want their car directly charged. We have, more seriously, salespeople who are going to be on the road. They need to bring something. They need a few additional kilowatts in their car. So they are giving priority for their charging. But for kind of the rest of the people, we can easily shift this production. And so typically what we do is we tell, well, at 12 o'clock, let's say, for instance, we want that the car has 60% of energy added. And at 4 p.m., we want that the car is fully charged. So we really make the use of this cheap electricity price, and we really make also use of the solar production. This is what we want. So we want to really use the solar production and the free energy. Then we have the V2G example. So the yellow line is the state of charge of the car. So this is a shared car in a community that we are using in another European project. But it gives a good example of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So typically a shared car, when it's plugged in at night, we can let the state of charge drop at 30% because we know statistically that the car is not going to be used. But then during the day, we want that the state of charge of the car is at a much higher level. So typically, when the car has a high potential of being plugged out, we will charge the car at 100%. And then if the car did not leave, then there is a high probability that, not high, but there is a probability that the car will still stay there. And we will make use of high electricity price. So that's when we will start to unload the car. So you see that at 10 o'clock, for instance, we are making use of, it's not the highest price in electricity, but it's a high price. And so the state of charge drops at 75%. And then solar is starting to produce more than what the community is really needing. And so then we use this excess of energy to store it back into the car. It goes back to 100%. And then at 5, then we start to unload the car again because the prices are interesting. So yeah, this is kind of an example. It's something that is kind of working. We are now looking more statistically into how people are reacting to this new way of having mileage in a car, and are there people using the car when we think that they are not going to be using it? So there is still to look at how the people are reacting to this behavior, because it's kind of new. We're not stopping at a gas station and filling our car. So voila, this is kind of a presentation of what we're going to do with FEDECOM. So still in the first stages, but I think we're pretty confident now. I see the team members here, so.
Any questions for FEDECOM, for Aurelien? Yeah.
So the way it works is people will get there, plug the car, and you guys control when that car receives each one when they receive the.
Yes. Yeah. We do have algorithms that do optimization in steering the charge pole.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you found. There are some things that are kind of difficult because it's also kind of new. So the standards are not always nice. We don't always know, for instance, the state of charge of the car when it arrives. So there are assumptions, and so for now it's kind of trial and error. and we're waiting that the standard is really being implemented into the charge poles, so that we can have
Get more information.
more efficient way of steering those.
Okay, thank you.
How the use of the batteries with all this stress charging constantly affects its life at the end, and does it compensate obviously with I don't know whether it is politically viable, but also economically, I suppose it is.
Yes, so for batteries, we are starting to have a good idea. For V2G, it's too early. We don't know yet how this charging and discharging is affecting really the battery, because for now it's something mainly V1G. But for batteries, yes, we are losing the health of the battery. So yes, there is. But when we play, let's say we play with the energy prices, we're kind of making more money than without it. So it's a positive business case. Now, you're right, it not necessarily at the total cost of ownership in really producing the battery, the lithium, greenhouse gas emissions, that kind of topics. I agree. I leave that out.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna go to the coffee break and we'll start sharp at 11 o'clock with Maggie with this presentation. And so enjoy. We'll see you at 11.
My name is Maggie Lash. I work at BECKON. It's a research center in the company EDP. It's an energy company in Portugal. And today I will present you with positive energy communities and heritage sites, focusing on VIPV solutions and community solar farms. So I will use the project that we have, the POCITYF project. It's a European project with two main lighthouse cities, one in Portugal, in Évora, another one in the Netherlands, in Alkmaar. And I will focus more on Évora because we are actually doing the site management of that pilot as well. So I will start with a brief description of the PEDs, the positive energy districts that we have in Évora. And then I will focus on the building integrated photovoltaics, the VIPV, and the community solar farm. So in Évora, we have two main goals. We have the goal of having 3 zones that are positive energy. So we have 3 PEDs, the positive energy districts. This means that we aim to have more production than consumption in these regions. The second goal that we have is actually to establish 3 different energy communities in each one of these 3 PEDs. So we have the city center that involves 8 municipal buildings and 11 residential and commercial houses. We have a rural area called Verde, where we have the University of Évora, that is actually a partner of the project, and 36 residential and commercial houses. And then we have a third PED that is in the industrial park, and it involves a data center, an office building, and a store. And we have different challenges for each one of these 3 PEDs. So starting with the city center, the main challenge in the city center is that actually we have a lot of barriers. We are not allowed to install PV panels in this city. We have 11 clients with PV panels, but these panels were installed before this legislation. So now nobody that lives at the city center can actually install PV solutions. And this is a main disadvantage compared to the people that live outside the city. Then in Valverde, we don't have these kind of barriers, and actually it's a perfect spot to install an energy community because the houses are really close to each other. In the legislation in Portugal, we have a restriction where the clients need to be at a distance of maximum 2 kilometers. So actually all of these houses in Valverde can establish an energy community, only one energy community. However, the challenge that we faced here was actually regarding the citizen engagement, because it requires a lot of trust, and we don't have much time to do that work, and it's really important in this type of projects. In PED 3, the industrial and commercial park, we don't have restriction as well, but we have the stores have a high consumption, so we don't know that when we install the energy community, if we will have the surplus or not, because there are a lot of energy to work.
So focusing on EVRA and the building integrated photovoltaics, why do we need this? We need this because we have several restrictions in the city center. The cultural administration don't allow people to install panels. And if we want to have a positive energy district, we need to have high production. And so we needed to find solutions to actually have this production. And those solutions are the building integrated photovoltaics that are devices that can produce energy, but they don't change the aesthetical appearance of the buildings. And so this required a lot of interactions between EDP, that is the coordinator of the project, and the cultural administration, as well as the energy administration. So it was really hard work for us to be able to install the solutions. What solutions do we have? We have two different companies that actually are in the consortium of the project, Onyx and Tegula. Onyx focused mainly in these three solutions, the skylight PV, the PV glass, and the canopy PV. And here are some examples. We have 8 municipal buildings where we are going to install the solution. This is just 3 of them. First of all, the first main market building, we will install a skylight PV there. The city hall, I think, is the most interesting building in the project because it's actually where the municipality works. And the building is facing a reconstruction work at the moment. We were able to include this project, the skylight, inside the working that was already occurring in the building. And then we have Summer Med School, that is one of the 3 schools that we have in the project. We are installing PV glass and canopy PV. So let's take a look at each one more closely. In the first main market building, we are installing a skylight PV, 74 units with a total install capacity of around 18 kilowatts peak. This is a big challenge because the building already has a skylight and now we want to change it to a PV skylight. So we have to be really careful with the dimensions. That's why we have units with different power peaks in this building. The city hall, like I said, is facing a big construction work at the moment, but luckily we were able to change the work that was already occurring in this building, and we are installing a PV skylight there with 33 kilowatts peak in this building. The Summer Med School, we have 2 solutions. First of all, the PV glass, it will be installed in the windows. You can see in the background, the image in the background, those windows. It's 6 windows. We are changing the glass of the windows to PV glass. And so the power is not that high. It's just 294 watt peak. But then we have 2 different categories. We have a total of 54 units. I think it's 29 in one and 25 in the other. And it has a total capacity installed of 16 kilowatt peak. So this is good for the school. All of this would be focused on the self-consumption of these buildings, but the extra, we hope to be able to form an energy community so that they can change the electricity between them. The second partner is Tegula. Tegula just has 2 solutions, the Tegula Solar PV, the traditional PV shingle. Traditional PV shingle is really innovative because these shingles look exactly the same as the traditional ones that they are producing. So one from the outside cannot say if they are normal shingles or PV shingles. These traditional PV shingles are going to be installed as well in the city hall. So as you can see, the city hall is facing a lot of difference, a lot of challenges. We are also going to install there smart systems, building management systems, smart meters, and all of that. In the EVRA arena, that's where we have the most shows, concerts, and all. We are also going to install Tegula Solar PV. And then we have 2 parking lots where we are going to put Tegula Solar in canopies in these 2 places. So in the EVRA arena, we just have 50 units. It's 7 kilowatt peak with an area of 100 square meters. It's already something. In the city hall, we have 3,350 shingles. This is a huge one. And actually, Tegula is not an industrial production. It's like a family business. So it's a really big challenge for them to produce this amount of shingles for the project. And it will have a total install capacity of around 25 kilowatts peak. In the parking lots, we will have 2 parking lots, 448 units with a capacity of 64 kilowatts peak. This is just an image of one of the parking lots. And then we will have a solution that is really innovative, and it's really important for us because this is a solution that will enable the city center to be positive in terms of energy. It's the community solar farm. Like I said, the people that are living in the city center cannot install conventional PV panels in the houses. So we are aiming to form a community solar farm in the outside of the city and prioritize the citizens to be able to receive that energy. Actually, they don't need to be owners of the panels, so the business model is a little bit different. They just need to show interest in this community solar farm, and they will receive a lower price compared to the grid price. And the company that is producing this electricity doesn't need to go to the market to sell the electricity, so they can sell at a higher price, and that's why they make profits of this. So this is an image of where we are going to put the PV panels, and this is actually what will enable the project to reach the two goals: to reach positivity and to form an energy community. The idea is to have an energy community with the municipal buildings where we have the equity solutions and the community solar farms that are focused on the citizens. So the entity that will exploit this community solar farm will be entitled to establish the energy community, finance supplying and installing the production units, and elaborate all the legal procedures of the installation. We are not sure if this community solar farm will be finished by the end of the project, but at least it will start during the duration of the project and it will finish on June 2025. So this is POCITYF project. Thank you very much for your attention. I don't know if you have any doubts.
Questions? Please, curiosity. So, I understand that you are mainly targeting positivity within the district, but I mean, on a certain point, the big issue on energy balancing will be when you reach an IPV installed. So, to tackle that issue, to be able to forecast power output will be key. And since you are bringing so different technologies, innovative ones, do you know if these smaller companies providing these technologies already have a good idea on the power output, for example, on those traditional PV coverings?
So the solutions that we have, the Onyx and Tekla, they have around half of the efficiency as the conventional ones. And they are still really expensive, 3 to 5 times more expensive than the conventional solar panels. And we expect to have like 110% of positivity. So it's like just 10 or 20% more than the actual consumption in that area. And the idea is to sell the extra. It's because when we are implementing PETs, we have to be aware that there are regions that cannot use positive energetic. So it's important to have PETs to fight against that regions that are actually not able to be positive. Compensating. Because there's a lot of discussion now between the projects that are implementing PETs, whether this is actually necessary to have PETs, and if we can do this everywhere. And actually we can't. That's why we need them in the places that we can.
Yeah. I guess for that energy exchange and balancing, having a clear idea of the modeling of the technology in terms of power output is critical. So it's good to know that these technologies are pretty low, let's say in the TRL, but they are already have this modeling on their output.
They are not mature yet, but the idea of this project is actually to install them and to test them, because like 80% of the cities that we have in Europe are historical, so this can be a really huge push for these technologies to develop and to be installed all around Europe.
It's really interesting that you use BIPV to get all the regulations in the heritage cities. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? All right, Alfonso?
Yeah.
Thanks, Maggie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so good morning everybody. I'm Alfonso Ramallo from the University of Murcia. and I'm going to present Masterpiece, which is a project that we just started. We are 5 months in, but really exciting challenges at the moment. It's interesting because I've seen many companies and institutions in the previous presentations this morning, but not that many universities. So I'm an academic and we are coordinators, so I think that's going to give this project some sort of flavor that is going to be different to the ones that are led by other companies and consultancies. So I think that's something to take into consideration. Can you hear me okay with the microphone? All right, so, it's here. Yeah, fantastic. So Masterpiece is a project with 19 partners, or this kind of 18 plus 1 consortium. The project started in January this year, and it's going to last for 42 months. Although it's not there, total budget of the project is 7 million euros. And I think that's give you a magnitude of the depth that we're going to be covering the different aspects that we want to consider in the project. And when we wrote the proposal, what we thought is that we needed something that had to be very modular and had to solve maybe small problems that you might find along the way of creating an energy community, or that you may find when running an energy community. So we formed a highly multidisciplinary consortium to work in an interdisciplinary manner. It's interesting to see how people coming from different backgrounds understand concepts in a different way, even the language is different. And we will try to overcome all these barriers. So, as I said, what we want to create is some sort of toolbox of technical and social innovations that will help with the creation of these energy communities. We think that although energy communities are a great tool to drive the European society towards more efficient citizens and smaller peaks and more resilient energy systems or ecosystems, we need to avoid the overhead or the effort that is going to be needed to create those energy communities. It will be unrealistic to think that energy communities are going to create from nothing, from scratch, if they don't have some sort of enablers in the way that are going to be available to everybody. Of course, we will have a revenue stream that will come from tackling inefficiencies, but that's not enough to push this in the first step. So that's our first objective, is to create, to facilitate this this pathway that's going to be towards the creation of energy communities. Secondly, we believe that in the same way that the appearance of new revenue streams can create a circle of self-sustained systems, in the same way that happens in the technical and economical way, we believe that we need to establish some sort of scaffolding and framework that will facilitate people to create their own energy community in the sense of giving them the building blocks that will help them creating the applications and the services that will make their energy community unique. So they will feel part of that energy community because they have created in a way. And that was our second project objective, to try to get that kind of self-sustainable paradigm also in the social aspect. Of course, this needs to happen with business strategies and incentive mechanisms, and this is a twofold target, because in the same way that we create a new business strategies that will create the revenue streams, also we have to make sure that there are incentives that will help people adhere to this energy community and to make it appealing. So that was our third project objective. Now, we are University of Murcia, the group that is leading this project. We are from our computer science department. The experts on cybersecurity are literally next door. And we are doing a lot of research on how the cybersecurity can be a real problem, where we are talking about enabling technical and social changes thanks to ICT technology. We just published a paper very recently saying that we did a surveying study, and we saw the results were incredibly clear. Families with small kids are less willing to uptake ICT technologies. So smart meters, especially if they have controls from outside. So for example, I don't know if you are aware of the BECKON smart thermostat that they are doing demand response events in Canada and the US. You basically have an input from your DSO or from your aggregator that's going to change your thermostat. It's incredible how we saw that people, as soon as they have kids, they have something in their brain active, and they say, something happened in my house? Not happy with it. So it's a real problem. It's incredible how vulnerable we feel when we have the envelope of our building transparency, even if it's via an information signal. So we wanted to put this objective up there as one of the main ones, because we're finding from our research side that unless we really make people trust these ICT technologies and interconnections, we're just not going to be successful. And we're talking about energy community, and it has been said this morning before by, I think Blanca said, that these as service products, they always have this technological strong ground that offers this communication. So we found that incredibly important. Okay, and the objective 5 is we need to make it happen. So we designed this project in a 42-month period. So we have 2 stages in which we're going to do 2 rollouts of energy communities technologies. So we test ideas in the first round, and then we test products and services in the second round. For that, we have 5 pilots. Funny enough, one of them has been mentioned before this morning. We at UMU, that grey lovely building there, it's the proof of concept that we're going to do in Murcia. But it's only a representative building of a campus that has more than 20 buildings, and that we are going to model as an energy community. And the idea is to test first ideas and services there, and then move to the other pilots that you see there. We try to make the pilots representative of different areas of Europe. So you can see there, you can identify Italy, Turkey, France, Sweden, very different in climate, very different in legislation, very different in social aspects as well, how the people are, how they understand a community, because a community is understood in a very different way in different countries of Europe. We have to remember that. And we wanted to test all that. Hence, we decided to go for these pilots that we thought were highly representative of what we were going to have in Europe. And basically, as I said, we've only been working 5 months in this project, so actually I think we have much more from the work we did to prepare the proposal than the actual work we've done so far. But since the proposal up to now, we are always talking about these 3 dimensions of the energy communities. And this is maybe something that we use to make our life easy, but it is true that we found that the energy community can be formed and can be understood in 3 different dimensions. And we found the technological dimension was one, the social dimension was another one, and the economic dimension was another one. And if we have in our energy community sensors and meters that send the information to a single hub of information, then we can say that technologically we are interconnected. But how are we interconnected in the social manner? Are we all in contact to each other? Do we know each other? What about the economical part? Can we do transactions between members of the community? Is there an easy way to do that? Do we have a local market in the same way that we have a microgrid? Do we have a micro market in our community? So we found that these 3 dimensions of the energy communities were incredibly interesting, not only because it allowed us to understand the different aspects of the energy community, but also because we identified that the energy communities that have been done so far, most of them are not equilibrated. You find that some of them are very social, some of them are very technological, some of them they have more regulation, that's mainly because they are in the right country. But also, it allows us to identify how we can move in those dimensions. So if we have an energy community that is in the social and economical aspect are very developed, but not in the technological aspect, then you will need some sort of hardware intervention, put more meters, put more sensors, put that data into a single hub. Whereas if you have a very technological energy community, to gain the social aspect, you may need completely different interventions. So I think that was a very interesting challenge that we were facing when designing this project. Can I move around the camera?
And that's the camera there.
Okay. Right. So, as I said, we come from a computer science department, and we are going to have, we're going to create a platform to host these tools that are going to be helping people to run and to create the energy communities. And basically, you can see the triangle there in your left-hand side. And in the center, you can see the platform as we conceptualize in the sense that we are going to have a flow that's going to go from the lower levels of the platform where we're going to have the data up to the higher level of the platform where we're going to have the services and the applications. Now, you probably have heard about this before, but I don't know if you heard the phrase data is the new oil. Have you heard this before? Data is the new oil? Okay. So if data is the new oil, then we need to transform that oil into petrol and gasoline and kerosene and all those kind of things. And if the data, our oil is at the bottom of the platform, then we have to push it up and to equip that data with semantic models, data modeling. We have to enrich that data with algorithms so we get knowledge from that data. And then with that knowledge, we can provide the services that will help those energy communities. Basically, that's the conceptualization that we have in our project. As I said, this is a 42-month project, and we've got 6 work packages there. We produce the first set of deliverables of Work Package 2, energy community requirements at national and EU level for different stakeholders, where we've gotten a feeling of what's out there, that the regulations, the use cases that have been successful in the past. But as you can see, we have a long way to go. And hopefully we already started with the, so for you to have an idea, we're somewhere around here. So very early in the project. So now it's starting, the action is starting with the work packages where those tools are going to be developed. And hopefully we will then test those tools into Work Package 5. That's going to be the demonstration and integration. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Any questions for Alfonso?
No?
Good. Okay, good. Esther?
Yeah. So, can you hear me well? Can you hear me well as well? Okay.
No.
Okay, what I'm gonna present now is just the BECKON project. So, first of all, I'm Asier Barrechea, I'm from FEDECOM, so it's a consultancy firm, but in this project I'm representing renewable, and we are working together with another companies like here. So, what I'm gonna present is first just the project overview, then I will focus more on what we call one-stop shop happening in our projects, and then what we are doing is what we call a technical assistance cookbook. That is just a guidance of how to have energy communities happening, but with just a detail that I will explain now. So, in terms of the BECKON project, the BECKON project, the specific thing of the BECKON project is just that it's focusing on the equipping of local authorities. So it's not going directly to the energy communities, but it's in that local authorities. In terms of how it's organized, we have the capacity building, we have the technical assistance part, and also the one-stop shop. What we are trying to do is, on one hand, facilitate the information. That information should be really focused on types of people that they are not technical as we are. So it's really focused on how these local energy agencies, but also the local agents can understand, and the offices as well, how they can understand the information that we are providing. And then also the one-stop shop, it's where we are collecting all the information. So it means, on one hand, this the technical assistance cookbook, but on the other hand as well, all the information that it's on how to prepare, how to organize, how to provide that information to locals. And in terms of which local parts we are focusing on, there are 3 projects. I will explain it just. We have one project that is in Sofia, another project that is in Denmark, in Copenhagen, and the last one that is in Avila. So it's the province of Avila. Here, something that we want to stress is that on one hand we have a province, so it's a provincial level that we need to do to get to the locals with these local offices. On the other hand, we have Copenhagen. So Copenhagen is just from the city agency. They are helping local energy initiatives just in the city. And then Sofia, they are working with the Sofia, so for the city of Sofia, but also for the surrounding agencies. How it's organized, the one-stop shop, we have on one hand the knowledge hub, that is where we are collecting all the information. And on the other one, we have the training hub, that is where we are placing all the information, all the courses that we are providing to local actors. So just the left side is transversal modules, so it means that it's for any country
it will be used in the same way. While we are doing for the Opportunity Hub, it's just on how to make together the local energy initiatives, how they can identify the people, the experts, the professionals that they need for entering the project. So we know that in principle, most of the projects that we are listening before, they are interesting from a technology perspective, but they have more difficulties in a way of how to get that to the locals. So it's interesting in terms of, we are trying to solve many other things, but when you go through into the projects and you are just talking to locals, it's becoming really difficult for them just to understand how they can use that and what they need to do. So we know that on one hand we have the knowledge, and that's fine, but on the other hand we need to really facilitate as well on how they will just contact the right people from the social perspective as well as from the technology perspective, but also on how to understand in general what an energy community is. So when we started, we have already thought on, okay, we have the platform, so it's just the technological platform that we will create. But just focusing then on the cookbook. Cookbook is just the word that we are using for saying a guide. But we started thinking on just on the other side. So what an energy agency, local energy experts, people from energy communities, what they will need. So we are really focusing here on, okay, if we start from the locals, from the experience that we already have in energy communities, that, by the way, in my case, I'm working since 2009 already in energy communities. So it's already quite a large experience on seeing why they succeed, but also why they fail. So there are many projects in which it seems that everything is working properly, and suddenly after 2 years, something happens and it just drop. So from the fundamental premises, for us it was really important just to understand we cannot do a guide that solves everything, and especially that we can solve it just in a moment. This is dynamic, things are changing continuously. Your projects are developing things that they are already changing the status of technology, but the same happens especially with regulation. It was already mentioned now in the morning that regulation is something that is changing continuously. It's country-based, so it's something that we need to take into account a way that we can update that in the so just to give how we will do that is just in the platform, we are using just links. So the platform will be there, and you can add it any way, anytime you want. So from the coordination, it will be possible just, if something is changing, you just move for some time, and you put something in. And with that, what we want to avoid is that kind of thing that it really happens, that is that we want to platforms, or we want to databases, that you are not using them anymore because maybe 40% of the information is not functional anymore. So the other thing that we really considered is that it's a complex topic. So there is the social part, the technological part, the regulatory, but also municipal part. So just identifying the reality of these projects. So you all are involved in projects that are local initiatives, and you know how things they might change continuously. To this, we need to accept that there is no one that really knows everything. So it's important to understand that we are not just focusing on one person or one expert, but that we need to provide that information for all. And that's why what we are trying to provide is just a self-explanatory structure. And then we will make kind of a storyline. It's not really a storyline, but it will be something more like guiding notes that it will help for users to understand where they are. So I will just show you afterwards. And the last message that this was really stressed from the project officer, it was don't build again for the 4th, 5th, 10th time the same. If you find things that they really work, use them. So just make the link to that project and use them. If there is something missing, please provide it, and as simple as possible. So provide templates, information, wherever, that will be really easy to understand. So in terms of project, we have, as any of you, in terms of content, the technical support, operational and financial support, the participatory engagement, regulatory, legal, quality control. So the topics are familiar for us. And what we are providing is not just tools or technology tools, but really simple things. So sometimes they are just templates, basic tools, documents, so things that we can just refer to, and we will explain why they can use them. So for us, it's important just not to give a link, so not to make another repository, but really to explain them why they can use each of these materials. So it's important also to understand that sometimes we are not making a reference to a document of 200 pages. We are telling them, go to this page, go to this chapter, here is this explained, so you can use it for X and Y. Okay? So this is more or less the logic so on that. And then what we will do is just integrate it in a one-stop shop. In terms of how we understand the energy communities, and this is something that in many bilateral conversations can see that we still, even the experts, we understand energy communities in a very different way. And it's really dynamic, so it's not a discussion for now, maybe it can be just discussed afterwards, but it's important to understand that we need to explain that as well. But first we need to understand it. So for us, how we are making it a bit more simple is that on one hand, we are talking about a legal entity. So we are talking about whether they will organize an association, a cooperative, limited responsibility company, or whatever. So we are going to focus on there is a legal entity, there are people there is an organization, something should work as an organization. And on the other hand, we have all the activities. So many of the activities here, we went directly to them. So we are talking about the collective self-consumption, EV charging, mobility, blah, blah, blah. Then there is the next step that what we do with all of that. So this goes to the flexibility, energy management of all of these kind of activities. But what is important to understand is that sometimes it's important to also communicate that. So when we are talking about an energy community, what type of energy community you are talking about? And it can be dynamic. It can be that you start with part, and then you just move to another type of energy community. But in this project, we were entitled to at least develop the collective self-consumption part as an structure, and then, of course, in this kind of system, other types of initiatives, they could be just added. But for us, the most important part in terms of regulation reality is just the collective self-consumption. Then how we organize the material, we said, okay, there's a legal entity and there's a collective self-consumption. And if you go to the reality, things don't work as we want. I mean, they start doing things, sometimes there is already a legal entity, and they want to just make the activity. Sometimes there is nothing. And some other times you have a project, so they have already a collective self-consumption installation, and what they want is just to use that in order to create an energy community. So it's important just to make that kind of division in a way of how it works, but then the steps, they are something that it was already also mentioned in other projects, that it goes from initiation, design, implementation, and operation. So when we are talking about initiation, it will be really simple. We will just give them examples, so really just references of projects for inspiration. And something that we are trying to create here is a simple way that they can create a two-pager that they can then just show that to technologists, policymakers, or any kind of organization that they need to request financial support, for example. So we are trying to make just a quick questions in a way that they will end up with a format of two-pager that they can just show it. So it's, again, really going to practicalities. In terms of design, here is just a business plan. So what we want to create here is all the steps on how they can end up with a business plan, in which all the topics that we have already discussed about financing, regulation, how to create it, they are described. And then implementation, it's really a process that sometimes we forget about it, but you know that, for example, with DSOs, the part of regulatory, so regulation and requesting the permissions for integrating the grid, it is essential. So there is one part that is just a theory, but there is another part that is just the reality when you are just requesting that, and how that affects also throughout the process. Because sometimes you need even 12 months to get the permissions, for example, for creating the self-consumption installation.
And then the operation, that to my experience at least, seeing how many projects they were created, I believe that that's not that difficult. That's where we are quite good at that. But usually there is more the issue of keeping them alive or modifying them. So we have something in the beginning, we want to add other types of activities, they were not expected, new people come, new opportunities are brought by other agents. So how do you do that? So this is something that we wanted to focus there. And the idea is, this is just a schematic, so we are in the month 7 still, and now we are creating the platform in which we need to also make it more visual. So we are trying to find a way that we do all of this more in a visual way. So this is the structure, so this is the backbone of how it will work, what will be integrated. So there are kind of 4 levels. The first one is the 4 phases that we have mentioned. Then the underlying part is kind of topics. So it means, general, so for example, financing is a topic, but it will be, or just for example, in the beginning, defining the activities and the business case. There is part that is just providing a template of a business plan. So we will not just provide one. It's not that we are the ones who know which is the best one, but it's just we will provide a few of them, and then they can choose. So the expert will be that will be behind, or the local offices that we are supporting, they will be the ones saying, to our case, or for our case, to our opinion, this is the most important, this is the most relevant, or most fitting our project. So with that, what we want is just to really understand the reality that each community, sometimes we are talking about few people just collaborating, and in other cases we are talking about really complex energy communities with more than a few 100,000 people that they are even having, that they are this kind of digital type of communities. So this is more or less the structure of how we are creating it, and just to underline the operational side, something that we also think of when we will try to make it, this kind of modification, but also determination. Unfortunately, there are some of these projects that they have, and it's quite common that this is quite chaotic. So creating is quite easy, but deciding how we close it, do you sell the installations, do we modify it and create something new, can we sell it? I mean, as an energy community, that's something that usually is not faced. I mean, it's still, of course, it's not really the common situation, but that we believe that it's important just to force in that. And as I said, I mean, we did it independently for the collective self-consumption, so we do exactly the same according to all the processes. And this is just an example of how it goes in terms of content. So what we do is just make a small explanation of the material, and on that material they can just click and go to the material. We have 2 types of material, as I mentioned. Some of them we will create in the project, and we will just identify that. And in others, we even just mention the project. It's an external project or external source, that can be a European project or something else. And what we do is just tell them, okay, go to here, and as I said before, go specifically to this case or this part, and explain. And there we explain why it is important and where they can find that information. This is just a small example of material that we are using, that we are integrating in the platform, in the Kuku. So at this moment, we are just in the phase of identifying and now selecting which is the first information that we will provide. And there is a second part that, of course, we will make the organization that I said for the first information, but we have also a database. When we are doing this, we have a long list of different tools that we will also just add. They can go to that, but we will not make the same instruction as we did before. So at this moment, what I think that is important is just to explain that we are in a moment in which you are more than welcome that any information that you think that might be interesting for the project, that you want to be added there, so just provide it to us. And especially there are 2 parts that still we are struggling to find. That is, for example, that in financial estimations, we used to have tools for the installations, but usually then if you look at it from a business perspective, from an energy community that has some specificities, there are not so much information for that. So we are missing that, and then also that it's quite common that then each of the participants in the energy community, they want to have a view of how it affects them. So every year, for example, a financial review on how much money they put on the project and what kind of benefits they are getting from that project. Okay? So this is something that we are missing, and also on the operational part. This is more challenging because there is a kind of diversity of projects, but still it would be interesting just to get a bit more information on how they can really operate. If we don't find it, probably we will just create something simple to do that. So that's it. That's the presentation.
I think there may be a lot of questions. No, maybe not. I just want to point out that this really is, I love the fact that the project officer said don't reinvent the wheel. Use what's good, and this really is the point of the conference, to be honest, is, talk with similar projects, see what's being done, see what needs to be done, and do it together. I mean, you don't need to compete. We're all funded by EU tax money. So this is great to see, and I'll save my questions for the roundtable because I want to give Antonis and then Francisco their time. Antonis? Yep. Thank you very much. Yeah, please. Okay, for the online people.
Okay, so good morning from my side as well. My name is Antonis. I represent Q Technologies. We are an ICT company. And here I'm going to explain to you a few things about the risk project. So, to be honest, I like the complementarity of the topics of the previous presentations, and mine will be once again complementary in the sense that I want to give you some insights on technology, right? And to be more specific on digitalization of all these things we have been discussing up to now. So, starting off with a few words about the project itself. First of all, the risk is a coordination and support action. Right? So it's not per se a project that's going to develop technologies. Rather, we're going to use what we have already developed in the past and try to apply, gain insights, see how we can replicate them, and so on. So it's now in the 9th month of operation, implementation. So we're still quite early in the process. It's a 3-year project. But we have already done a few things, and we are now going into the actual, if you like, not demonstration, but actually deployment of technologies, talking to people, talking to communities involved, trying to understand their feelings on technologies, digital technologies, and so on. So, what that aims to do? It aims to support the market uptake of renewables by fostering adoption of demand response, and more specifically, demand response in households, which is probably the most difficult domain or market segment. Now, the benefits of this are quite clear. So if we can get households to participate in demand response in one way or the other, we have basically half of the demand for electricity being able to adapt to the volatility of generation. So that can give a huge benefit to the grid, but of course, a very difficult challenge. Right, so the core elements of this project include, first of all, a digital platform for flexibility provision based on digital twin technology, and that's what I'm going to talk a bit more about in the coming slides. But also equally important elements include customer behavior journey. Right? So how do you approach the people, the communities? How do you help them take up these technologies? Business models. This is a complex domain that's not it's not there at the moment, especially regarding demand source and households. So there are many different value chain actors. The services are not defined yet, and to understand how this landscape is going to work, how these people are going to work together, how these legal entities are going to work together, where are the win-win opportunities, where are the revenue potential, and so on. The regulation, as mentioned, the previous presentation, regulation is still very, very fragmented. It's very, let's say, it's very different across countries, and of course we need to find a solution that's applicable because it's a common problem that we all faced. Financing. So this technology, if you like, this integration of homes in demand response schemes or visibility markets requires some investment. may be low, it may be high, whatever, but we need to finance these investments. And we're, especially we're looking into crowdfunding schemes in the project, to understand how we finance these upcoming investments to make sure that all these things can become real. And finally, we have demonstration and validation activities in 4 different countries, so maybe in Turkey, Spain, in Ireland, and in France, involving different community, but also other actors like educational institutes. Now, high-level overview of the project aims and objectives. So, first of all, we're going to engage end consumers, not only citizens, householders, right? Explain to them what we want to do, why it's important to become part of this solution, right? And make them actually be willing to adopt technologies. The second will be, and if you like, a consequence of the first, so increase the posting capacity of renewables on the grid. If we can manage to have flexible demand, then we can manage also to accommodate more volatile generation on the grid itself. We're also looking at local flexibility markets. I wouldn't put that in the sense of a real market, right? Local transactions, peer-to-peer transactions, and so on, but rather how to integrate all these end consumers of electricity and other energy sources into the grid in a flexible manner. Regulatory challenges, of course, we need to understand what are the challenges and what recommendations can we provide to overcome them. Finally, well, leverage the adoption of this local flexibility tools and investments already available in renewable technologies, and actually validate all the solutions that we are offering in this project. So to go a little bit now into the technology perspective. So if you like, my aim here would be more for people to understand what we want to do as if you like, digital experts. So there's a big discussion about data that's being collected from households, how is data used, can I trust, all these things going on. So I think it's good to give some insights on how exactly we do what we do. Of course, from a very high level perspective, so that we can also gain, people can get some understanding and some trust in this process. So if you look at it from a very, very high level point of view, there's almost a lot of architecture that Alfonso presented in a couple of presentations before. Right? So there are 4 different layers in this. So on the bottom, we have, sorry, I'll go out of the camera for a minute, but on the bottom we have basically information collection layer, what's called IoT or whatever else. So here's where we actually collect information from the building. On top of that, we build a digital twin. And what this means is, based on the data we collect, we try to model the assets that are in the building, be they appliances, the building itself, the envelope, the thermal properties, and so on. Plus, we want to model the usage patterns of all these things, because it's a combination of, if you like, the usage patterns, how people use these appliances or assets, plus their intrinsic characteristics. And that's what's going to define the final energy demand of a home. Right. Now, after we understand this, we go on to flexibility management, which is basically like energy management in a bit more narrow scope, right? And that's where we can do optimizations. Right? You can say, okay, I want to save money, or I want to do this or that. I want to participate to help the grid through flexibility provision or whatever. Right? And then finally, on top, we have tools for the legal entities that administer all these different households. Right? It can be an energy community manager, whoever that may be, depending on the legal form or the social characteristics, or it can be market actors like aggregators, third-party aggregators, retailers, and so on. Now, one of the main benefits, if you like, of this approach in general, not necessarily the tool, but the approach, is that this is a modular stack, right? So in our case, we offer this whole stack to the project where we participate, but we could work, for example, with a data collection layer from another vendor. And say, okay, as long as we have the data we need, we can build on top of that the rest of the services, right? Or we could just offer the data and somebody else can build the rest on top. But I think it's important to have, well, flexibility, if you like, here also as well, right? So we don't want to lock in specific vendors of any kind of solution. It's good to have the freedom, basically, to select good ways to deal with each layer. Also, such an architecture, such a modular architecture actually facilitates some alternative business models, right? So we can talk about even energy efficiency in the home. We can talk about flexibility for the grid, which would be market-based. We can talk about cost optimization or cost reduction within the home, energy cost savings, and so on. But also from the more technical perspective, different deployments, different service delivery scenarios. We talk about as a service kind of scenarios, right? Or we can talk about cloud versus local kind of deployments of the solutions. So finally, the main cases that we are dealing with in the risk are implicit and explicit demand response, and that's what we're going to test in the coming couple of years. So going into a little bit more details about each of these layers. So this is the data collection layer. So what we do, basically, what we want to collect detailed information about energy consumption of different appliances in the home. So don't worry about GDPR related stuff. This is my home. This is my data. So, but the reason I'm showing this slide is because from these kinds of figures, you can see how easy it is to understand what's going on in the home. And it's if you can learn how to see the patterns, they are evident. Of course, it's easy, right? But here, for example, you see a washing machine, or there on the left, you can see an AC unit for cooling. So we can understand that based on the data we collect from these buildings, we can understand the usage pattern, right? How people use the different appliances in the home, how people actually affect the energy consumption of the entire home. Now, the idea, of course, is not to profile people and try to do bad things to them, right? But it's more to infer from what they're doing, actually infer their habits or their patterns, and then try to accommodate this in the context of flexibility. Or try to use this information in order to obtain some higher level goals, like how can I optimize this, right? What would I do to optimize this without, of course, annoying the person too much? Now, technically, how do we use all this information? So this is what we call the digital twin layer, right? So this is where we model all the things we need to know. So we have, on the one hand, assets, appliances, and so on, and then plus the some characteristics of the building itself. So buildings possess a lot of thermal regulation, right? It's a basic principle, right? You heat the building, it stays hot for some time. It has losses, but you can leverage this. This is a storage component, right? And this is actually what we do. So we want to model this. So here you can see a model that's being trained and then forecasting what will be the indoor temperature of a building under the given forecasted weather conditions, which is heated by a given system, and so on. So this gives you the opportunity, if you like, to see a little bit into the future what's going to happen. So if I heat this building now, how it's going to behave in the short-term future. On the other hand, you have, for example, appliances like domestic hot water devices, right? And then what you would like to understand basically is how do people use these? What are the usage patterns? Because I may want to shift this consumption back and forth in time, for example, to move it to a time when my PV is actually generating. So it costs much less for me if I want to optimize my own cost, for example. Or if my DSO or my aggregate has flexibility, I can move it around in time. If I know how a person uses it, which means uses the appliance, which means how he also or she wants to use the hot water that's generated. And again, here there's just a model of an air conditioning unit. Now, what's also very important is this part of the picture, right, which is understanding the usage pattern itself. So, understanding thermal comfort of the people inside the building. What do they like in the building? If I know what they like, the temperature they like, I can accommodate to this, if you like, preference by shifting around the loads. Or lifestyle choice, hot water demand. I can shift it to understand when they need hot water, I can shift the consumption patterns. Well, here's all the house activity patterns very generic, but for example, when do they wash their clothes or dishes? Right? How do they use other appliances? Can I understand the pattern and then try to influence how appliances are used? Right? And now, on top of these models, we can actually build an optimization framework, right? Because then we understand what's going on in the home and how the assets and how they're used actually affect energy consumption, right? Meter readings. And if you have this link, if you like, modeled in a causal way, then you can understand if I change something, what's going to be the impact on the energy consumption pattern of the entire home. So here, this is just a brief example. So here we're talking about operational scheduling of an HVAC system. This is specifically for an office building, it's not for a home. So you can see here, for example, that we have basically, you want the user pattern to be within office hours, so it's from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You can see here that we're scheduling the operation of the HVAC in order to maintain this blue line, the indoor temperature, within specific limits, which are the comfort boundaries specified by somebody in this case. It could be the building manager, it can be the occupant themselves, right, if they have access to the thermostat. Now, having all this information, these models, we can actually do flexibility dispatch. Right? So this would be, for example, the blue line would be the normal profile, energy profile of the building. And you can say, for example, that for any reason I see the signal, I want to do something, I want to change consumption pattern. So this red line is actually the real consumption measurement, right, after you have played with the operation of all these appliances and devices. So, as I said, it can be called by a signal from a DSO, from an aggregator, for market purposes, or it can be for internal purposes of the building itself. Right? And here you actually can also see the reality of things. So not everything is a nice square line aesthetic, which we always design nice figures, but these are actual measurements. Now, on top of these tools, we also have the tools for management by the third party. So if we're talking about energy communities and householders, we'll have an energy community manager who needs to, for example, oversee the generation from a community PV plant, for example. If we're talking about collective self-consumption scheme, here, for example, you could see this would be the global consumption, and on the bottom, well, this lower line would be the consumption of different households. From such graphs, you can understand what you actually need to do. So, for example, I need to shift these peaks over here within this, under this production line, because that way, for example, I'm under a net billing scheme, it will optimize my costs. From such an interface, you can see, for example, health states of different devices. So, it's not visible here, but here you can see, for example, how many of all these IoT devices are operational, online, and so on. You can have your energy community members on a map to understand how these are related, what are the geographical dynamics, and so on. And of course, this can basically facilitate many different operation scenarios, like political self-consumption, demand response, what was mentioned before by all these opportunities, if you like. Plus, also optimization at the building level, right? So there could be members of the energy community that think they have some waste, so they could operate their appliances in a better way, right? You could even give them insights on how to operate your energy appliances in a better way, right? Especially if you have also generation source shared or individual PV plant. So just, of course, you need also a tool for the people to visualize all this information. They're not going to be able to access dashboards and all this complex information. Plus, what we do in this case is that since we already have all this infrastructure in terms of IoT, we give them also capability to remotely control their own appliances. Right? If we can control something, they can also control it as well from a mobile app. So we want to be as transparent as possible. So apart from the monitoring information and the insights, they can also remotely control whatever they have. And of course, we are also looking at, well, we have been investigating different alternatives of letting users bypass whatever we do, right? So that we have the capability based on this toolbox to do it automatically. Right? In principle, we are testing that, but not many people want, a digital solution doing everything for themselves automatically without visibility and transparency and so on. So they're always able to override whatever the system is doing, if they wish to. So these, as I mentioned before, we're in the beginning of this project, so we don't have the demonstration activities, but these are just some results from a previous project where we try to basically provide flexibility to the grid in an explicit demand response scenario. So this is an automated scenario where the system itself took a decision and actually changed the consumption pattern of a home. So just small disclaimer, this should be 5%, this should be 10%. So there's a small typo here, but basically what this figure shows is that with these tools we can provide flexibility in a reasonably reliable way, right? So here we have two different pilot sites, one in Spain, one in Cyprus, with a mix of residential and tertiary buildings here. Here was residential and university building, and this percentage says out of the times that we got a signal basically to give flexibility to the grid, right? How many times we went within 10%, let's say, we're within the percent of the requested power, and how many times we went within 5% of the requested power. So these figures are reasonably good, taking into account that we're talking about households, right? So this is not an industrial complex where you have a single person, facility manager or plant operator being able to shut down things on demand. We're talking about households and people who can intervene and do things. So I think the message here is that flexibility from homes can actually work. Of course, we have a lot of things to do. Still, there are many challenges I've discussed in previous presentations, including technology challenges. So this is not a product yet, right? These are prototypes that we're still testing within European projects, but the potential is there. And that's what we want to explore and validate within the risk. So I think that's all from my side. So thank you very much.
Francisco? Thank you.
Hello, everybody. This is Javier. First of all, thanks to the organization of Central Crisis and especially to them to give me the opportunity to solve these questions on the real. I'm going to speak about the data mining in energy community. Perhaps a topic more technical and general than the previous ones. But don't worry. We have to have other presentation about the goals of the real that is in. But of course, in order to focus the project, I will speak about what are the purpose and the challenges. So, the purpose is to improve the Islamic energy independence through the maximization of exploitation and integration of renewable sources using energy strategies. We have developed an ICT platform, a solution that allows to perform different demand response strategies in order to optimize the energy management. Because we need the user engagement, it's very important, but it's something that we have to work very hard in order to achieve a large scale application. There are 3 demo sites in 3 islands, La Graciosa and Canary Island in Spain. The one is Aran Island in Ireland, close to Belway, and the pilot is in San Pietro, in front of Airport. And there are also 5 following islands. The main changes is to unlock the demand response and flexibility potential, like with the last presentation of the difference, but in this case, is to apply it to Iceland. That has the potential that the energy in the islands are very, very expensive because we have special dependencies and have to be self-consumption. We have the Chinese the user engagement, something that I suppose that everybody that here has seen, and the piloting the solution, the demonstration in the demo sites, demonstrating the savings and the massification of the energy autonomy. And finally, develop business plans to escalate the solution. We are 53 partners from 11 countries, and the coordination is with Spain. Going to the technical focus, the focus of the presentation, this is the architecture of the platform. We have several models of different functionalities, very similar to the previous presentation in the operational way. I'm going to focus in this part, and that is about the data management. The idea is that, as she has said, that this resource that comes will help you to develop other energy communities solutions using our experience. Well, the platform has 3 data repositories. Why? Because there are heterogeneous data, and we have choose different repositories based on the performance and the applicability of each repository to the type of data that we have to manage. The time series database is the repository to manage raw data, or the data coming from IoT devices, sensors, and this kind of equipment. The relational database is to store other type of data that is more structured in general, to the services that we have developed. And the semantic repository is the repository that link all the data in both repositories and generates the topological information of the energy communities. Why a semantic repository? Because it's semantic, it's more engaging, it's based on the meaning of the data, and it's flexible, because each community has different equipment, different assets, different conditions, etc. And the semantic repository is easy to adapt to any other type of energy community. This is the core of the schema of the semantic data model. The main entity is the equipment. A facility has different equipment. The equipment could be a heat pump, a battery, a PV panel that have specific properties, but also has other devices that most of them, or some of them, will be to measure data that is stored, that the values are stored in the database. We have published this ontology with 3D, and it has a special part for the heat pump ontology, and the respective vocabularies, and we have also published, I think, the IoT ontology landscape portfolio. It's a catalog of ontologies for semantic interoperability in the IoT domain. For population repository, we have used a data point list that is extensive, that is user-friendly because it's oriented to the energy community manager, that is in order to gather all the information about the topology of the homes, the equipment installed, the assurance that are available, the discussion in the pilots with the owner, the community, with the community manager. We compile all the information in the community. The third seat is something like that. Special thing. And the process to import the data to the semantic repository is you have a Excel file for each of the energy communities, in this case for each of the pilots. We use the framework Jena to transform this Excel file in a graph format, and these graphs are imported directly in the virtuoso semantic repository that we have used. It's possible to use other repository. Use it has a lot of functionalities. At this moment, we have all the information of the energy, all the topology of the energy communication available in the semantic repository, and the different services and application companies. This is an example of the graph. You have an assurance, an execution, the device, and this belongs to a home. The keys and the 27. Then, in order to use by the other service or the modules of the platform, we have developed a REST API to encapsulate the queries to the semantic repository and integrate with the repositories. And this API is used by the web dashboard, the mobile app, and other services. Which service are we talking about? The similar that we have previous in the DevX project. We have the energy demand forecasting service, the production forecasting service, optimization, the battery energy control dispatching, thermal cooling models, and of course the web and mobile application. This is in the time repository, the design includes the database, and is stored the raw data of the different measurements, and you can access in real time, or you can access to the historical data with the best performance. In the relational database, for example, we have the data for the different that is used for and generated by different services. For example, the demand forecast, the design forecast. Other services use this data to generate the last good for optimization and for control, and to send the active control actives to the different equipment or mobile application. This is all for
Francisco, if you can see him at lunch. There's only about 10 minutes. Can I ask all the speakers to quickly come up to the front just for a quick roundtable, please? Yeah. So while you're coming up, I think the first question I want to ask all of you is, I know your presentations were on different topics, some technologies, regulations, and so on. But in one word or one phrase, what would be the biggest driver or barrier to energy communities as a concept? The deployment, adoption, so on and so forth.
Yeah, very hard question. I would say there are so many different things, energy communities, that there's no single solution. And there's no barrier. I mean, it depends on the legal framework, it depends on use case, it depends on so many things. And there's no one size fits all solution. And that's the main problem. I mean, we're all developing approaches, solutions, be they legal, regulatory, technology, whatever. But we cannot address the whole thing to give a solution to everybody.
Thank you. So I would say barrier is complexity, really. So it includes regulation, is what you mentioned. And that's where the one-stop shops can help, really. And that would be, I guess, the driver, that to have such one-stop shop that have the adapted marketing messages, let's say, because it's also a way to sell it. It's like also energy efficient renovation. You have to find the right messages. If you focus on CO2 savings, it won't work, so you have to work on other types of benefits, and I guess that's the same for energy communities.
So I would say that it's linked to what was mentioned before, but just to stress one of them, it's just the concept. I mean, it's not clear what an energy community is. Regulators, they really don't understand not what it is nowadays, but especially not what might be. So for them, it's really difficult to regulate, and that then affects to all the rest of the things. So if we don't know from regulation what we are talking about, we don't know what kind of business cases they can be created. Locals, they don't know exactly what kind of organizations they can do. And it's like, so there is kind of that link. So I would say concept of energy communities is not clear yet.
And so for a more practical point of view, I would say that something good that comes out of the energy community is the opportunity to share experiences between the members in electricity and the difficulties and everything. But barrier, I think it's trust, and I can see this from our experience in the POCITYF, for example, in Valverde, in the second pad that we have, it's a rural area. Most people are elderly people. They have a lot of difficulties getting into the technology world and the digitalization, and they don't trust that easily in us when we are going there to explain the project and the opportunities. So I think that's the main challenge in establishing energy communities.
Okay, you said barriers or enablers, right? So I'm going to go for the positive side. I think now with the absorption of mobility through the grid, so the electrification of mobility, we are pushed to the roads, and it's a great opportunity to actually rethink this. And the energy communities are going to be a great tool for rethinking demand and how we use energy. And also we've got apparently a lot of European money to solve problems. So that's also a good enabler.
For me, the bigger barrier is the energy consumer, but it's not the case of this slot, the electric slot. But of course, we need to make good technology in order to facilitate the user engagement. To improve the deployment of our technology in order to be easy to use by the user. Because the legal barriers are there, and that's not the forum to speak about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the next session. There are some good questions online. We don't have a lot of time, but has anyone experienced any, because for me, an enabler is DSO cooperation. It ties into citizen, engagement and so on, but without the DSO, you really, I don't think you can do anything, and I could be wrong, but the online question is, have there been any situations where DSO was against energy communities in your project? And if so, how did you manage to overcome the opposition?
My experience is that, of course, in the beginning, the main player is the DCO, demand response. Of course, it's true. But at the end, most of them are not so engaged. And the energy communities, I think that is a very good way to advance in demand response without the collaboration of a DCO. Because it would be nice that both of them will be collaborating, but for me, the better of the energy communities is that is a autonomy move.
Anyone else?
Yeah, maybe. I'd say that DSOs are by default enemies of most use cases for energy communities, like net metering.
Wow.
Right? Net metering, especially from small PV plants, less than a megawatt, is bad for a DSO. So they are fighting this and using the grid as a battery. Now, what the protection for communities is the regulatory framework. If you have a regulation for net metering, then you just sit on that and exploit it. But they're not necessarily the best of friends, DSO communities.
Can I add something on this?
Please.
So yeah, I do understand your point on saying that DSOs are mostly against, but they are not, let's say, threatened by energy communities because there is always be a network to operate. But there are middle-term intervene with, let's say, retailers, which are really threatened by energy communities if we look into the overall scope of maximizing the self-consumption and so on. Could those actors be middlemen between what the energy community's potential in terms of technologies, of the social part, and what takes to push it forward by linking into the network?
So actually, I can give a first quick response. So actually, we have a representative from a small energy retailer here, who is actually, they are actually trying to transform their business, right, from 7 kilowatt-hour to 7 services to 2 people because they know that that's what they want. And you can talk to Pablo and Miguel in the back there, and they can give you much more details about why they do it. But they're a very good middlemen, and they are the one to facilitate, if you like, this whole transformation.
Yeah, not really in this project, but I've been working as in the corporate strategy of a DSO. So, and just my function was what they need to change in order to be able to integrate all these kind of business models, not only energy communities, but all the types of flexibility, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the first thing we need to understand is that they are not ready. I mean, as a company, the people you are working with, they are people that they were doing things in the same way for 20, 30 years. And it was really static way of working. And we are asking now them just to shift completely that mindset and be really proactive, solving problems, etc. And they are regulated as well. So my message for our side, we will not solve that side, but we can just facilitate it and just make it as simple as possible. I mean, for them, the message should be really direct in a way of, this is capacity that I can get, but this is what I can provide as well as a service. And just making it short just in a bit.
Yeah.
So this is something that they really need, and it's just cultural, as it happens in the energy communities. There is in the company culture, and that's the culture that we will find in DSO. Of course, there are levels, but that's in general the case.
Yeah, I think, unless there's anyone else, for me, I think if I had to answer that question, the barrier would be the DSO, and the driver would be the aggregator, the low distribution, low voltage aggregator, which doesn't really exist today. But there is a potential pathway in the market for it, and a lot of people are trying it, and So I think it will relate a lot to this afternoon session, how will this aggregator engage the citizen? The technologies are clearly there, the data is there, and then they could make lives easier for the DSO by working with them and so on. But unless there's anything else,
I would just like to add something small there. You're right. The only thing that is important as well is just to understand who is managing. So there is part that if you are talking about the aggregators, and it might be different types of aggregators that we will not talk now about it, but something that is fundamental for them is who controls, who takes the control and who takes the decisions. And this is something that you need to place it in the table from the beginning. Not talk about aggregators in general, but tell them, this is in our side, this is in your side, and it will work.
Good. Well, 5 minutes late, let's have lunch.